Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney here. Guys, I have world-renowned. I think they talk about him in Singapore. Best animal vet on the planet. We're going to dissect. We're gonna start from day one, exactly how you got through medical school. No, we're not going to talk about any of that stuff. We got Jason Balara here. How you going, my man?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing good, my man.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming on. Guys, this is one of the greatest human beings I've ever met in my life. I'm not saying that. He's a good dude. What do you want to talk about today? What are we going to talk about?
Oh, man, whatever you want. I know, your title is Construct Your Life. So I guess it's kind of, I'm sort of reconstructing my life. I guess it's, sort of second chapter right now. Hopefully,
there you go. So here's what we're going to talk about: how you screwed it up. or
screwed up in the
how
first
you
place.
set yourself up for so much success in the future, right? So, so talk to us about that deconstruction a little bit.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm a veterinarian. I'm a veterinary surgeon, and that's kind of my background. And I was the kid who wanted to be a vet from as long as I can remember. My growing up, just always begging my mom for pets and things like that. And so a lot of people feel that way, and I sort of stuck through it. Ultimately got through vet school, went through residency, became a surgeon, and that's my sort of current career path. And then the reason I say reconstruct is that sort of now into that I'm venturing off into real estate investing, and it's not a complete divergence because I've always been interested, right? We and you and I have talked about this before, but like I grew up with no money. We grew up in not nice apartments, things like that. So we never had a house when I grew up. We lived in apartments. We moved probably almost every year. And so it was like a constant adjustment and a constant new school systems and things like that. And so I guess when you do that, then you're either going to go one of two ways, right? You're going to like follow that path, or you're going to go 100% opposite direction. And so that's me. Like I was, from the time I could think about it, I was like, I'm going to own a house. And so I always wanted to own houses, and ultimately did that as soon as I could. I bought my first house when I was 25, but I didn't have any money. So it was, out of necessity, I bought, textbook fixer upper, and I just started figuring it out. And I had to, I was lucky enough I hired a contractor to do some things. And I guess I asked him enough questions that he was like, hey, this guy kind of maybe has an interest in this, and ended up working for him for a while. And that process kept going. And so flipped a bunch of houses of our own, kind of houses that I lived in, and learned a lot about construction to the point at which now the current house that I live in with my family, we had it down. We joked because it was like, we called it the house on sticks, because we essentially demoed it down to the studs, and it was literally just the studs and a roof on top of it, and rebuilt it from there. So my thought was someday I would flip houses. I was like, someday, once I, had enough money, enough time, all of that, I was going to sort of flip houses. And then 2.5 years ago, my son was born, and I realized how much I wanted to take back control of time. I worked a lot. I have a W-2 job. I also have a side business doing mobile surgery. And so when it became time that I thought I was going to start doing real estate, like I said, I thought I was going to do flips and stuff like that. And I live in LA. So that probably is the easiest way to make money in LA. Like making money on cash flowing rentals is hard just because, you know, the costs don't equate to what the rental rates are usually. And so I started looking at that, but I realized that was another job and was going to take away, you know, sort of more time with the family. And so I started just, you know, kind of researching. I was reading a lot of books, listening to a lot of podcasts. And I happened upon, David Green's book about long distance real estate investing, which is in relation to single family rentals. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. I'll just set up a team somewhere else and I'll do long distance single family rentals. And I actually had started that process. Basically, all of this started essentially at the same time COVID started. So it was kind of, you know, weird timing, but it was happening. I mean, it was, you know, sort of, I had a team in place in Atlanta. I had a friend who I worked with who moved to Atlanta and became a realtor. So it was kind of like, all right, that makes sense. And then the more I started looking at the numbers of single family rentals and the ability to scale that, I was like, because I'm not patient, right? I'm not a patient person. I was like, so how many of these houses can I buy in a year? That's really, it was just like, okay, how can I just turn this over and over? And at the time, I still wasn't thinking about, you know, other people's money, investors, things like that. And I just, like I said, I kept reading, kept listening to podcasts, and came across syndication, multifamily syndication. And that's really when it really started to change my mind, you know, sort of shift my mind and you know, back to your title, like that's when I realized what I wanted to use, the tool I wanted to use to reconstruct my life so that I could take back the time, you know, take back control of my time.
What's interesting is, unlike your situation where a lot of people look for a different avenue out of disgust, right? Out of like, I fucking can't stand my job. You know, it's not that you can't stand your job, it's that you just want your time back. So there's two different things. So on the surface, if I was an outside judge or an outside advisor, I would say, if you wanted to do single families, you should have started 20 years ago. That's the first thing I'd say. Right. So it was really more of okay, here's what I can do. Yes, this is great, but on its surface, scale wise, dude, this is going to take me 30 years. Yeah. But wait. So what you're telling me is I, with no money of my own, can look at 100 units and I can make people buy that and I can run it. Well, and then not to mention, I always believe that everything has to have an A to B, right? And so what's another benefit of what you do? Well, you know, a lot of other doctors that want to put money into real estate. So there's a lot of connectivity to that investment / what you do. On the surface might not seem like anything, but ultimately the credibility that you have within the surgeon community is probably why you'll be so successful in the syndication business.
Yeah. And we, like, I mean, veterinarians are not unique in this, but nobody teaches us this, right? Like you don't learn this stuff in school. You don't learn how to be financially responsible. You don't learn what are the right investments to make. And so everybody sort of tries to do what they're told or what the norm is, right? Like invest in your 401 or contribute to your 401k, get an IRA, you know, save your money, all of that. And it's like, The funny thing is, for me, 5 years ago, maybe a tiny bit more than that, like my retirement plan was I won't retire. Like literally, that's what if someone asked me, what are you going to do? It's like, I like working. Why would I retire? And it was just, it really was. It was my son being born that made me realize, like my wife's been, I mean, we were together a while before we got married, and like she's very tolerant of my passion for working, whether that's in, you know, as a veterinary surgeon or in real estate or whatever. Just, you know, she knows that I'm not going to be outworked by many, you know. And so it's kind of she knows that, but kids don't know that. And the reality is like, I don't want to be away from them. Like someday I'm going to flip houses again, but I'm going to flip houses with my kids. Yep. Like that's going to be the reason. I'm going to flip houses with them because I've got a garage full of tools and I know how to use them, and I want them to learn those life skills. Like now we have a 6-week-old daughter. Like those are things that I think they can use in the future, but also most importantly, like I want to teach them how they don't have to do that. Yeah. Right. Like you don't have to do it all yourself.
I just had a great idea. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a masterclass, and you're going to teach it right now of all the things that you wish you knew you could. You're going to talk to your 21-year-old self right now for the next couple minutes. Go to work.
This is a good one because I do this in my head all the time. Like anybody who like watches this podcast, and thinks like, oh man, I wish I did that already. Like what have I screwed up? I screwed it all up. I did it all wrong. Like literally I just told you my retirement plan was not to retire. Like that's a dumb retirement plan. Like
you didn't read the 4-hour work week at all.
Right. Like my thought was I can just, I don't know, outwork life, whatever it was going to be. But it's like, I took no consideration of, people get sick sometimes. Like I had no plan other than, because that's what I did. I started working when I was 12. And so talk about like the things I should have said to my younger self. I've been making money since I was 12. So 34 years ago, I started making money. 5 years ago, I actually started doing something smart with it. Like I have done dumb things like, and the thing is like, I never partied. I never did any of that. Like I don't drink. I just never did. Like I grew up around alcoholism. So I just went the opposite direction of everything. And so but what I did do was I wanted to take care of everyone around me. And so, and not that that's a bad thing and I don't regret it. I just think I could have been smarter about like saving some of that money and investing it at an earlier age. So that's one of the things I would have told myself, my younger self. Now I did do some smart things, almost an accident in that regard, in that I kept buying these fixer-upper houses, right? I'll never buy a house, even now, I'm not going to buy a house that someone else already fixed. Like it's going to be, maybe I won't do all the work anymore myself, but I'm not going to buy a house that someone else already fixed. I'm going to either build from scratch or I'm going to buy, something else to fix up. But I have built some wealth doing that by, sort of buying a house, fixing it, selling it for more, that kind of thing. And
that should be a life lesson in just everything.
It's an easy way to get started, right? In real estate, it's the easy, and I never considered myself a real estate investor doing those things. It was out of necessity. So it was kind of like, I had to, because I didn't have the money to do anything else. And then once I realized what you could do with the power of that, like it made a lot of sense. But yeah, sort of back to like the things. So should have started investing sooner in whatever other capacity I could have. In hindsight, after the 2008 crash, I had some money. Like that's when I finished my residency in 2008. So I finished my residency 2 months later is when the market crashed. Terrifying because a lot of people got laid off from their jobs and I was the new guy. Luckily, again, I don't get outworked by many. So it was like, I was able to prove my value as a surgeon pretty quickly. And so they didn't want to get rid of me. Also, probably my base salary was lower than anyone else, but whatever it was, it took a couple of years, obviously, for the economy to recover. But if I had started this process then, right, like in 2010, I mean, how many people that started in 2010 are now like multi-millionaires because they just rode that wave of the market? So that would have been good. And then the other thing I think would have been paying attention to those, sort of financial vehicles, even though, like, for example, an IRA, like at this point, I don't necessarily think that an IRA is the best idea as an investment vehicle. However, what's not a good idea is putting the maximum money in it because your accountant says it'll get you a tax reduction and then not doing anything. I just put the money in the IRA for 10 years. It sat in an IRA, not invested. So it was a savings account with nothing. like I just didn't know these things. And so it was just, I mean, there was a lot of lack of education that it took me, I guess, sort of sitting down and saying, I really got to figure this out before, I could put those things on track.
And I've seen this a lot in the less educated, more poverty-stricken areas. We're giving them financial advice based off of 1960.
Yeah.
It's very disheartening.
I mean, everybody,
I got to put it in. I got to put it in the IRA. I got to put it. Right. Yeah, I got to put it in the 401k. That's a good plan, as long as you have other things too.
Right. There's nothing bad about an IRA or 401k or anything like that. It's just that you're not really gonna survive on that. When you start to think about it, it's like you're basically trying to hope that you die before you run out of money. When that's your plan. Like with an IRA or a 401k, your plan is to die before that money runs out.
Instead, just for happenstance, and Matty A said this yesterday, if your plan, everybody thinks you got to go out and get crazy. If your plan at 25 was, I'm going to buy a house a year, fix it up, rent it out, and you did that for 20 years,
you'd be
you
good.
live like a king.
Yeah, you'd be good. It would be, you could retire early and still live well. Like for me right now, like I'm just playing catch up. That's what I feel like, is I'm just playing catch up, that if I had started even 10 years earlier, would have been dramatic.
And because you have such a job where you make such a high W-2, it's going to be very hard to replace that. And it's a conversation I have with my buddy all the time. I got a great friend, one of my best friends, taught me almost everything I know. He's a couple years older than me. I want him to come work for me when we get enough going on. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, you need to match this. And I'm like, nope. He's like, you need to match this. And I'm like, dude, you're thinking of it all wrong. I'm going to hand you the keys to a salary plus bonuses, and you get to do whatever the fuck you want to do. Yeah. You want to disappear for a month and work from your phone? Do it. So I don't need to match that number, but that number is so ingrained with who they are as a person that they can't separate the difference.
Well, I will say that's, sort of one good thing for me. Like I said, I've been working since I was 12. I have almost none of the jobs I have worked were hourly pay.
Okay.
So I worked as a busboy, kind of part of the tips, but then I worked as a waiter. It's tip driven, right? So It's like you're getting I worked for my uncle for 15 years in he owns a pressure washing company, right? It's not glamorous work. Like we were disgustingly dirty, but outside all day. Like I loved it in the summer. I hated it in the winter because I'm from Boston. So it was terrible in the winter, but the summers were amazing. Outside all day. He paid me. And at the time I didn't like it, but in hindsight, he paid me by the day. So guess what I learned to do? Work harder and faster and this was the same amount of work. So if I got done at 3 instead of 7 p.m., guess how much time I had afterwards? It didn't matter. Mm-hmm. So I just got better at doing everything faster. And it was I did that when I worked in everything. I don't like hourly jobs because I know that my efficiency in a job is going to be better than most. And it's still the same in surgery. I can do more surgeries in a day than most people can. Mm-hmm. And that's, it's the same thing. It's like base plus production type of situation as veterinarians. So it's not even that I am trying to race, but what that allows me to do is work less days and still get the same amount of work done. So it's all about still, sort of time freedom.
This is I'm not going to say it's a new thought process, but I'm definitely seeing it a lot more. I know I do it. It works for me. It doesn't work for everybody. Do you know how many comments I got this morning? DMs. Anthony sent me one. He's like, hey, motherfucker, I like you, but 3:45 in the morning is too damn early. And he's like, I'm like, hey, listen, bro. I got clients on the East Coast in New York and Canada. We're starting the day at 6 a.m. I'll finish the day at 7. I'm done for the week with the coaching. Oh, guess what? I'm also done with podcasts for the next 2 months after today. Like, because I batched it in 2 weeks. Dude, batching, Ed Milet talks about this. Doing 2 days in one. Yeah. Dude, it's going to get you ahead. I'm working towards the days. Like, I'm already doing that with Fridays. But I'm working to the days where I have no scheduled meetings on Thursday or Friday.
Yeah.
I'm good. What are you going to do? Well, I'm going to answer some phone calls. I'm going to send some emails, but I'm not going to have a dedicated meeting where I have to show up with.
And what you're going to do is whatever you want. That's the point. You're going to do whatever. And maybe that's work. Maybe you're going to work some more.
But it's my choice.
Right. That's it. That's exactly in a nutshell. I'm not necessarily even trying to work less.
No.
I'm just trying to work when I want. I don't want anyone else to have that control.
Me and Anthony said this the other day. It's not work-life balance. It's control of schedule balance. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what it is. It's just I want to, because I can't do surgery from home. I can't do surgery with my kids around, right? Like so I know when I do surgery, that's time away from them. So if I can make that all compressed into 2 days a week, then I have 5 other days a week that I get to do whatever I want with my family, and then put the other stuff around it. Like plug, it's like I've been off since our daughter was born. Like I bring my son to school in the morning a lot of days. Like it's fun. Like it's stuff I had. I didn't do it for the first year and a half that he was going to school, because it's like I was already at work. So now it's like to be able to just do, I bring him to school, go to the gym. Now I work and so a lot of times I've already worked some before that happens, but it's, just having that time in the day is that's my whole goal. That's what I am constructing towards.
Thank you. What's interesting, and you found it earlier than most, but I can't tell you, once a week, maybe twice, I talk to dudes in the real estate game who are 48, 52, 50, give or take, who would give their right arm to know what they know now, and I'm one of them too. If I would have started in 20 and just got over my fear and stopped being a little punk, and I would have invested, I'd be way farther ahead. And I think that you had that realization when you found out you were having a kid. That was kind of the holy shit moment. And the scary thing is that you could just keep going like you're going and probably be plenty fine. You live a great life, but that's not good enough. Yeah.
Yeah. And we were like, financially, we're fine. We're fine if I don't do any real estate. But again, it means I work, sort of, I'm more at the mercy of, sort of the job mentality without the real estate, without that sort of passive income. And it's like, it's kind of crazy. You read all about it, you listen to the podcasts. You want to know, this is a funny story. So you said, what things did I mess up? Kind of what's my masterclass to myself. So, on my phone, how iPhones put on, like they put some apps on there, whether you like it or not, right? Mm-hmm. I created a folder on my phone that was called Shitty Things, because I was basically mad that like these are things I couldn't get out. You couldn't delete them, right? So I made a folder to put them in. Well, do you know what was in there? The podcast app. Which is like several years. This wasn't even that long ago. Like a couple of years ago, I was like, "What are these stupid podcasts?" It's like now I listen to them literally all day long.
Thank you for the perfect segue.
Right, yeah. I have one. You have one. Like I listen. Now I'm like, all of my knowledge comes from these are amazing, and I'm like, this is the stupid stuff I've done. So that young people learn from me. Like I've messed it all up for you. Like it's easy to sort of hear what other people are doing and learn from their mistakes.
100%. And let's be honest, like podcasts are nothing but other people's stories. That's why they come on here. Hey, dude, don't do that. Hey,
Right.
bro, put down the fucking bottle of vodka, please, and fucking pick up a fucking hammer. This is what we're coming on here, guys. And what's funny? I recorded with Anthony earlier today on Brain Dump, and I've got this new fucking rant I'm on. Dude, there's whatever the fuck you want is out there. We're in a new world. This is not a hidden world where we can't find out what we want. The problem is that you're not committed to doing the fucking work. Every YouTube, this podcast, every other podcast, everything's there. True story. Somebody asked me the other day, how you know what you know? I said, well, my ex-wife was living in Houston. I was living in San Antonio. And for fucking a year and a half straight, I turned on Bigger Pockets, and that's all I listened to the entire car ride back and forth. And that was my college education in real estate.
Yeah.
That was it.
It's there. It's all there. It's really like you can. I was just in Atlanta this week, right? And this is so funny because I'm on the shuttle from the airport to the rental car place, and it's just me and the driver on the shuttle bus, like nice young guy. And he's like, "What are you here for? Business or pleasure?" I was like, "Business." He's like, "What do you do?" It's real estate. And he goes, he's like, "Oh man, that's so cool." He's like, I'm actually trying to get into that myself. I'm thinking about wholesaling and blah, blah. So like the whole shuttle ride, me and this guy are talking about real estate. And I was like, he's like, I need to, learn more about it. I was like, are you on Bigger Pockets? He's like, no, what's that? And I was like, biggerpockets.com. We like got to the shuttle stop. He put it into his phone. He's like, this, right? I was like, yes, get on Bigger Pockets and figure it out. Like it's there. Like it's all there for you. Dude. And I'm like, I hope this kid kills it. I hope that some small amount I helped him.
True story. One of my mentors now, I waited on him at the restaurant I was at. I didn't know what Bigger Pockets was. He slid it to me like it was a drug. He said, he wrote on the napkin, biggerpockets.com, and he slid it to me, right? And I picked it up and I'm like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's really fucking weird. And he goes, just trust me and listen. And dude, I put it on and it was over after that.
Yeah. 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 Thank you, Bigger Pockets. Like, it really is, it has all of it. It's a good place for connections and stuff like that. So it was that, finding about Bigger Pockets, the Bigger Pockets podcast. That was like the Bigger Pockets podcast was actually how I learned about syndication. Mm-hmm. That because I didn't know what that was 2 years ago.
No, I had no idea. And your ear pops up. You're like, whoa, hold on. What's that?
Yeah. No, I'm like, wait, you can like regular people buy apartment complexes? Like I thought all apartment complexes were owned by super rich person per apartment complex. Like that's how I thought. It worked. And so it's just like, the information, you're 100% right. Like all the information is out there. Like it's easy to find. There's lots of books. You can read them. You can listen to them. Like it's just so much. There's so much for you. And then, like you said, like listen to the podcast and listen to the people's stories. Like you don't even have to be, I was going to say, be smart about it. You don't have to be smart about it. Listen to what other idiots like me did wrong and don't do that. Like, don't waste 20 years. Like
simplicity is amazing, folks. Just take that, do that.
Right. And time.
Yes.
It's about having time now, but it's also about the power of time. Like that's with my kids now. It's like, if I put a tiny amount of money in like some brokerage account for them, even yearly right now, they'll be set. Like they won't have to worry about retirement because it's already going to be sitting there for them. Like, and it's like, that's not even my goal. My goal is to have them take it over and say, hey, look what happened. Like, look what happened when I started this when you were 2. And now it's like grown and you're 18 and now it's yours. And there's like, I didn't have to do it. We took your birthday money card or your birthday card money and put it in there. Like it's easy stuff to do if you use time to your advantage.
I love it. So you did something very scary for yourself. I think, was I the first guest? You didn't release me first. I would think I was number 2, which I'm still going to be mad about to the day I die, but that's okay.
You have to talk to Mark about that.
Yeah, that's totally Mark. He's screwed. I see him on Wednesday. He's in trouble. Every time Mark introduced me to somebody, they're amazing. I just want to say that. So if you hear this, Mark.
He is a great connector.
What were you thinking? You're a surgeon and you're like, I'm going to start a podcast.
Well, I mean, realistically, and first of all, like it terrifies me. Still like
guys, he's today, not joking. It terrifies him to death.
Like even today, like I love talking to you, but like it terrifies me just to get to be on a camera and like I've never. I mean, anyway, yeah, it terrifies me. I guess what happened, 2 things, like I got invited onto podcasts, I think back in summer of 2020, just like because I had been posting on Instagram about real estate and, everybody's looking for podcast guests. So I was terrified for that because I legitimately was like, I don't have anything to say. Like, I had, you have all the limiting beliefs and whatever. And I'm like, I'm not a real estate investor right now. Like I basically tried to talk them out of it. It's like, you don't want me on your podcast. And they were like, no, it's just a conversation. And so, thank you to Barry and thank you to Martinez for like opening that up to me. And then I had a mentor for, real estate syndication. And it was just kind of like, here are these things you can do to get yourself out there, build your brand, blah, blah, blah. Like one of them is podcasts. Lots of people have podcasts. And I was like, no, that won't be me. And what I found was that the more people I talked to in the space, the more I enjoyed it. Like the more I just love the conversations. And I told you, like, I know construction, right? So like asset management, construction management will not be a problem for me. Like I'm not worried about that part of the business. Like deal flow is hard because it's hard. It's hard for everybody. Capital raising, that's the next thing that terrifies me, right? Like getting out there and like finding investors and stuff. But asset management and construction management, nope. Like I see these properties and it's like I already know exactly what to do in my head. And I also know how to I've been plenty creative in doing things for less money for my whole life. So like that stuff doesn't worry me. And so I just, sort of back on track of your question, I was having those conversations, the more and more people I met, that I was like, okay, maybe I'll do this. And then I don't know if you know Barry Griffiths, but you probably do. I was talking to him about it, just kind of like casually, like, yeah, I've thought about it. I mean, this was probably back in the fall. I was like, I've thought about it, but really it scares me. And he told me about Mark. He's like, hey, if you really want to do it, let me know and I'll connect you with Mark. And I just forced myself to do it. Right. Like in my, my podcast is Know Your Why, because when I listen to everyone else's story or everyone else's podcast or read the books or whatever, it's like, here's the list of 5 things that you need to have to be a good real estate investor. And like on that list, usually number 3 or 4 is knowing your why. Mm-hmm. Well, that's number 1 for me, because without that why, without having the motivation of my son, now my daughter, like I wouldn't have done any of it. And so now every time I'm scared to do something, I'm just like, what would I do for them? Right. And what I would do for them is run in front of a train. So I can start a podcast like that. Like that's easy, right? Because I would die for them this minute if I had to, but I don't. But it's a podcast, right? Like, and it's like, really, I'm just having a conversation. I hate listening to myself still. I don't watch the YouTube videos. Like it's still uncomfortable for me, but I do it because, so every time I have a hesitation to do something, like, oh man, I don't want to call people and try and, talk to them about being investors and whatever. It's like, shut up, you're doing this for them. It's not about me. So it's just kind of that's what I was thinking. That's what I was like, if this is what I have to do to make it happen. And the fact is I enjoy it. Like, this is a fun conversation with you right now. Like, I don't know that I'll watch this episode because it's like, I don't like seeing myself, even when I'm like doing it, I see my own screen up there and I'm kind of like, I look at you because I don't like looking at myself. It's weird. But yeah, it's like I said, it's about knowing why I'm doing anything. And now I do. And it makes everything, I don't know if it makes it easier, but it makes me make it happen.
What has surprised you about the podcast that you didn't know before, which you know now?
It's how quickly it's gotten more comfortable. Probably that surprised me. And then maybe just how, and this shouldn't have surprised me, I guess, because I had talked to people, but just how nice and willing people are to come on. Like people I ask, like, I mean, yourself included, like people that I'm like, why would that person come on my podcast? Why would they ever care to come talk to me on my, like, and so I'm incredibly grateful to everyone that has come on. So yeah, probably those two things. I think it's, been a really great experience. Some people I've talked to that I didn't know them at all. They, someone else was like, hey, you want me to introduce you for this podcast connection? And I'd be like, yeah, that'd be great. And they would come on, and like some of the greatest like connections, conversations. And I'm sure this. Like, it's just maybe that's why it's gotten comfortable quicker than I thought it would, or more comfortable, just because people are pretty awesome in this industry.
And she's like, I want to read this because I wrote this morning. It applies to this. You can always measure what you'll lose, but you can't see what you'll gain.
Yeah.
Always about what's going to be the worst. And there's these two little words. They're so powerful. I think they might be the most powerful words in the English language. What if?
Yeah.
What if none of your fears come true? What if 3 years from now, your podcast is famous? What if it doesn't even matter that your podcast is famous, but it provides you the platform to raise money for your deals? There's so many things that come when you just move forward and you step beyond your fears. And guys, what he was saying there was because his why is big enough, because he can do whatever he wants to now. And that'll apply to everything. So create something that's bigger than yourself, move that to push you forward, and the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just, now it's fun. I mean, it permeates everything in your life, really. And I think kids are a common why for people, but it doesn't have to be that. Like, you just have to have something that you're really passionate about and you care about, and it's like it'll make you be a better person. I mean, it's like a stupid example, but like I play soccer, and it's an over 40 league. Like, it shouldn't be aggressive and competitive, but it gets aggressive and competitive. And like, I mean, just as silly, like yesterday, some guy on the other team, like, he was being real cheap with me, and I got mad, and it, like, he had his hands on my neck, and it's my kids in my head that are like, just back up, just let it go. Like, and it's just like that stupid stuff. And it's funny because like, that's probably the only place in the world that I ever have any like ever get above a certain level is when I'm playing sports. But it's that same, like, it'll just, your why, you can, if you let it, it will make you better in every capacity.
Guys, I'm going to let you know a secret. I've wrote about this about 17 bajillion times, but I'm going to say it again for you. The fact that you think I want to every day is sadly mistaken. The fact that you think I want to do the 2 workouts, the fact that you think I've done 10 Zooms today, the fact that you think I'm moving across the country tomorrow. Like the fact that you think I want to every day, you're sadly mistaken. But it's bigger than me. It's bigger than everything. And I have a responsibility to my gifts, to my values that I stand up on top, that I have to show up. And when you show up for yourself when you don't want to, it creates the momentum to go do other things. And in those moments are actually the true definition of you succeeding towards your thing, not getting the house, not getting the car, not getting all this shit, because that shit can't waver. This thing is what it's all about. And so when it's bigger than all those things, then external forces don't control it. They don't own it. You own it. And when you have the power, then you can control it. It's as simple as that. So I just really wanted to get that point across because it means so much. It's what you've been talking about. So if people want to find out about the podcast, they want to follow your journey, how would they do that?
Probably the best place is either going to be best place is Instagram, probably Lark Capital on Instagram. I'm Jason Balara on LinkedIn. We have a website, larkcapital.com. You can call me 508-561-3269. Anything is fine. I really don't. I'm like I said, I really enjoy the conversations, and I think your point about it's bigger than me. It's like Lark Capital is an acronym. There's no J in there. There's no J in there for a reason, because it's not about me. Those L and A are for my kids. So it's not about me, and beyond just my own immediate family. Like I want to impact the lives of other people. I want to impact the lives of other people that maybe grew up like I did. So
I love it.
That's it.
Boom. Yes. Guys, if you like this episode, send it out to your friends. Share it with somebody that gets some value from it. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.